Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first class on Pirkei Avot. I'm excited to see all of you. I think we're going to have a very interesting series of shiurim, a very interesting series of classes. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to speak, but I also would like to give you all a chance to ask questions, as I know that those do tend to come up. So I'll try from time to time to look at the chat. So you can use the chat as a way to, send your questions. And I hope that I can come across and see those questions. But now I want to start with the following, before we even start studying, and before I explain to you what it means to study Pirkei Abot from an Andalusian perspective, I want to ask you all a question. Do our thoughts spring up independently? Or are there some forces that determine what thoughts would spring up in our mind? That's a question. Do we all have an objective, pristine thinking, and that thinking is a function of who we are and nothing else? Or does our thinking actually reflect certain forces that act upon our mind? That's the question. So there's actually a pasuk in Mishle. It says, Enecha yir'u zarot uficha yedaber tahapuchot. It says that your eyes will see strange and unusual things, and because of that, you will speak things that are erroneous. So here we see that from the perspective of Shlomo HaMelech, we are affected by the world around us. All of us. It's impossible to divorce ourselves from the reality that surrounds us. And when you live in a particular society, if, for example, you are raised in communist Russia, that will affect the way you perceive the world. That will affect the way you perceive rich people, right? The way you perceive successful people. If, on the other hand, you are raised in the United States of America, in a capitalist society, that will give you a different perspective on rich, successful people. So in Russia, you will think, well, these people are evil, they're selfish. In America, you will say, oh, these people are amazing, they've succeeded. I'm not commenting who's right and who's wrong. My purpose here is not to comment on whether we should favor communism or capitalism. I'm not giving a class on political theory. I want to point out to you that we are all affected by the world around us, and that our very thoughts, they're not just independent. We didn't just invent them. No. Rather, there's a combination of things happening. So we process information, we internalize information, we exclude some ideas, we accept some ideas, and this affects the way we think. Okay, so let me introduce you to a word, a new word, or maybe for some of you it's not a new word. Perhaps many of you know this word, but it's a word that I like to now bring to your attention. And that word is epistemology. Epistemology is a word that is combined from actually two words. There's the Greek word episteme, which means knowledge. And then the second part of the word comes from the word logos. And the word logos means reason. So epistemology has to do with our internal thinking process. How do we reason? Right? So if I had to summarize what epistemology is, I would say it's actually the investigation of what distinguishes a justified belief from an opinion, right? So why in our mind, how do we generate thoughts? What causes us to generate thoughts? So everybody has a particular internal mechanism, right? And we use this mechanism to reach value judgments about things around us. So why am I talking about this? Because as you know, the Jewish nation, till about 70 years ago, the Jewish nation ceased to exist. And with the end of the Jewish nation, one would think that Jewish epistemology, Jewish reasoning will cease or did cease to exist as well. That's what we would think. Hold on just 1 second. Realize that I have to mute everybody, and I didn't. I apologize for that. I don't know if I have the ability to do that. Okay, fine. Give me a moment. Okay, I cannot claim the host because I do not have a 6 to 10 digit number. So if somebody has that number, you can give it to me. Yeah, you can give it to me properly. But until then, I would just ask you all to please mute your devices. Okay, great. So let's continue. So the Jewish nation ceased to exist when the Romans took over Judea. They destroyed the Bet HaMikdash. They destroyed the Sanhedrin, the Jewish court. They destroyed the monarchy, the Jewish monarchy, the political system was all destroyed. So you would say, well, hold on. If the Jewish nation ceased to exist, with that came the end of Jewish epistemology, Jewish thinking. And if that's what you think, then you would be mistaken, because actually, it didn't stop. And the book that we are about to start studying, it is called Pirkei Avot. Pirkei Avot is probably the most important reason why Jewish epistemology, Jewish thinking, Jewish reasoning continued to exist, even though the Jewish state was destroyed, even though Jewish political autonomy was no more. But because of the book we are about to read, Pirkei Avot, Jewish thinking continued strong, continued to be alive for many, many, many years. So I want to just bring to your attention, I'm going to share the screen with you, just to show you that my concern with Jewish thinking is not something that I invented. So I'm going to share the screen with you. Give me a moment. Okay. Let's see if I can do this properly. Yes. Okay. All right. I'm now going to do a share screen. Oh, and somebody sent me a message. Right. Well, yes. I mean, somebody sent me the following message. I think, therefore I am. Descartes, right? How does this idea reconcile with the theory that our thoughts are only externally affected? Well, let me just say two things. Number one, I am not of the opinion that our thoughts are only externally affected. No, I believe that there's a combination, right? There is a combination. So there are things around us, and we're bombarded with advertisements, right? I'll give you a great example. I don't know what the number of, I don't know how many cigarettes the human race consumes or purchases in any given day or any given year, but I would think that it's probably in the billions, the annual volume of purchase of cigarettes. In Europe, it's huge. So why do people smoke? I mean, there's no natural, I can understand why people eat. People eat because, well, the human body, there was a biological need for food. Why do people drink? Because there's a biological need for drink. Why do people smoke? Well, because people are bombarded with certain messages, and whatever the message is, it could be a commercial. It could be that they were young, they saw somebody smoking a cigarette and that looked very cool and they wanted to emulate that person, or they figured that the cigarette will give them that feeling of coolness, whatever the reason is. Some people chose to smoke. Other people chose not to smoke. So do you see, just because we receive a message from the outside, it doesn't mean that we're automatically going to follow that message. So I disagree with the idea that our thoughts are only externally affected. Rather, there's a give and a take. Okay, that's what I'm trying to tell you. Now, let me share with you the following screen. What I'm about to share with you. Oh, host disabled. Host disabled attendees screen sharing. I cannot share the screen with you. Okay, let me read to you. Let me read to you what. And next time, hopefully, next time we'll get over some of these technical issues. Not the end of the world. We can continue with the class. But in the meantime, I am going to read to you what Rabbi Avraham ibn Ezra says. You can later on check it up. It's Shemot, Perek Lamed Aleph, Pasuk Yod Het. The Pasuk says, Vayidaber Moshe, Vayiten Moshe kechaloto ledaber ito, behar Sinai, Shene Luchot ha'edut. Luchot Eben ketuvim be'espa Elohim. The Pasuk says that Hashem finished to speak to Moses. This is in Mount Sinai, the first 40 days and 40 nights. And when he finished to speak to Moses, he gave him the 2 luchot, right? The 10 commandments. And this is what Rabbi Avraham ibn Ezra says. Reke moach yitmahu ma asa Moshe bahar 40 yom ve 40 layla. People who have an empty mind won't understand what Moses could have done in the mountain for 40 days and for 40 nights. ולא ידעו אם יעמוד שם עם השם כמספר הזה וכפל כפלו שנים לא יוכל לדעת חלק מאלה ממעשה השם ודרכיו. And he says there are people who can be in the mountain and they can be in the presence of God. They can be in the presence of God not for 40 days and 40 nights. They can be in the presence of God for years and years and years, and they won't get it. They won't understand. And why won't they understand? Because if you want to process the Torah properly, you need to have a Jewish mind. Okay? If you don't have a Jewish mind, you're not going to be able to process the Torah. You can hear it, you can study it, you can go over and over and over again, but at the end of the day, that Rabbi Avraham ben Ezra is saying, they can be in the presence of God, God can be teaching them the Torah, and they won't understand the thing. Why? Because the mind is not processing information properly. Now do you understand why it's so important to study Pirkei Avot? Furthermore, now do you understand why we study Pirkei Avot before Shavuot? Because what happened on Shavuot? On Shavuot, we get the Torah. And what value is the Torah if you can't properly read and process the words in the Torah? So there's actually a Gemara that says, Goy she'asak b'Torah hayav mitah. If a Goy studies the Torah with intensely, he's hayav mitah. He has to be executed. Of course, it's an exaggeration. We don't actually execute a Goy who studies Torah. I think you know that. But what's the point of the Gemara? Because if a person processes the Torah, but he has a Gentile epistemology, a Gentile way of thinking, the whole Torah will become twisted, it will become perverted, and it will no longer be the word of God. That's why we study Torah, we study Pirkei before Shavuot, to remember, first have the Jewish mind, have the Jewish values, have the Jewish ideals. Then, when you study Torah, of course, you will process it properly. Okay. All right. All right, good. Now, back to what I was talking about in Pirkei Avot. And I want to end with one last thought before we actually go into what I mean by the title of this class. You know, the title of this class, I believe, was Studying Pirkei Avot from an Andalusian perspective, or from an Andalusian thinking. So here's the last thing I want to tell you. Why is it called Pirkei Avot? So first of all, the word Pirqe means the lessons. Okay? It's called lessons. So Pirqe, whose lessons? The lessons of Avot. What are the Avot? Avot, our fathers, right? So we have Abraham, Ishaq, Yaakov, but it's interesting. Which fathers are they talking about here? They're talking about the Hakamim. They're talking about the Tanaim. Why do we call them Abot? Well, why don't we call fathers? The lessons of the fathers, but it's really the lessons of the Tanaim, the lessons of the Hakamim. Why do we suddenly refer to them as fathers? You understand the question? And I will tell you. It's as follows. The lessons that we generally get from the Tanaim are lessons that have to do with law, that have to do with intensive studying of Gemara, that have to do with Sodot Torah, things that are related to what a teacher would give to his student in a proper educational setting. That's not this book. You know what this book is? This book is the type of lessons that a father would give to his child, right? What does the pasuk say in Mishle? It says, Shema beni musar avicha. Accept the special wisdom that your father gives you. And the lessons that your mother gives you, they're precious lessons. Listen to them. So that's what makes Pirkei Avot special. Here, the Chachamim are being uncharacteristic in the sense that normally the Chachamim are teaching to us what are the Avot Melachot and Shabbat. The Chachamim are teaching us what are the laws of Tumah and Tahora. The Chachamim are teaching to us what is Hames, what is not Hames, what is Ta'arovet Hames. They're teaching us these various things that are more academic in their nature. Here, in these lessons, in Pirkei Avot, they're teaching to us what any Jewish father and any Jewish mother would want to teach her children. That's why it's, or his and her children. That's why it's called Pirkei Avot. So I encourage you, you're all here, you're all listening. I encourage you all to teach this to your children because these lessons are really important. Okay, I am now going to take questions. If anybody has questions. I think everybody's on mute. I don't have the physical ability to unmute people, unfortunately. No, or yeah, because I like to hear your questions. But if anybody has questions, you can text them and I will address them. Okay. And yes, in answer to the person who asked, is this being recorded? Yes, it is being recorded. I will certainly post it on my YouTube channel. And I'll put here, I'll put later on in the chat what my YouTube channel is. And as well, I'm not sure whether the SCA is going to post it on their site. Either way, you can get it here or there, but it will be recorded and you will have access to this. Okay, one moment. Everyone here, I'm putting my YouTube channel here. So the name of my channel is Lucena Rabbi. Okay, that's my channel. You all have it, so you'll see it there. Subscribe to this because I have a lot of content there. I literally have hundreds and hundreds of videos. Let's speak about the title of the class. Okay, so the title of the class is An Andalusian Perspective. What is that about? What is Andalusia? So Andalusia is a place in southern Spain where the pinnacle, I would say, of Talmudic civilization, right? Or rather the continuation of Talmudic civilization took place in that region of Spain. I want to explain to you this. One of the great things, when I was young, I studied a book called Sefer HaKabbalah of Rabbi Avraham ibn Daoud. And he goes into the whole history of the Hachamim of that era. And what he shows is how the Hachamim of the Talmud, when they finished editing the Talmud and they closed the Talmud, so to speak, came the next generation of Hachamim, the Sevoraim, then came the Geonim, and he shows how all the wisdom of the Geonim was transferred to the region of Andalusia in southern Spain. So you had great cities there, Lucena, Rabbi. I associate with that. That's where the Rif had his yeshiva. The Rif was Rabbi Yitzhak Alfasi. He was the teacher of Rabbi Yosef ibn Megas. Rabbi Yosef ibn Megas, in turn, was the teacher of Rabbi Maimon HaDayan. Rabbi Maimon HaDayan was the father of Harambam. So you see how that all ties in. The Rif himself, going backwards now, the Rif himself was a Talmid of Rabbeinu Hananel, who was a Talmid of Rabbeinu Ha'aya Gaon, and all the way back to the Geonim. So Andalusia, that area in Spain, was the continuation of the Talmudic heritage, the continuation of the Talmudic thinking. It took place there. And one of the great things that I just remember when I was young, and I got such a kick from it because I never saw this anyplace, and I got so excited. I was once studying Masechet Yevamot many, many years ago when I still lived in Israel. And there's actually a story. There's actually a story there. This is, for those of you who want to check it out, it's, yes, Daf Kof Tet Vav Amud Bet, about halfway down the page. So if you look there, you see in the Gemara, it has the following story, that the Bar Achatet Rabbi Biba Ravayeh, the nephew of Rabbi Biba Ravayeh, was visiting the city of Cordova. Did you hear that? Cordova. This is in the days of the Gemara. He was visiting the city of Cordova. And then he went to España, which was more to the north. Spain, back then Spain was considered the area more to the north of Cordova. Andalusia is in the south. Cordova is a city in Andalusia. And he died on the way, and they buried him. And there was a question to do with Aguna and his wife. And that's a separate discussion. The point is, I was so happy when I saw this because it just confirmed what I studied in the Rabbi bin Daoud about Talmudic thinking, Talmudic civilization being transferred to Andalusia. So I had to share that with you. And when we speak about thinking in terms of history, that's all the history I want to give you today. Let's think now in terms of what's special about epistemology of Andalusian Jewry. What is the earmark of the Hachamim in that part of the world? And even before I get there, let me just make the following statement, and it's as follows. There is different perspectives. I know that. I'm just giving you this perspective because it's a perspective that I love, and it's a perspective that makes sense to me, right? So some of the things we're going to be may be a little different than what we're used to, or some of them may be great. Some of you will say, wow, this is amazing. This confirms what I always thought. So I just want to say that. So Andalusian thinking is part of Talmudic thinking, the Hachamim, Moshe Kibet Torah Sinai, and so on, all the way to the Hachamim and the Gemara, and to the Hachamim, which led up to the generation of Harambam. So I want to tell you, what is it that makes Andalusian thinking special? And there's three things. Number one, the best place to generate ideas is by looking at the texts of Israel. We have the Chumash, we have the Nevi'im, we have the Ketuvim. You want to generate knowledge? You want to find wisdom? Number one, study the texts of Israel. Be sensitive to the language. Be careful and precise in understanding the words. Because when you're precise in understanding the words, meaning will flow forth from the text like a river of water, right? You all know the famous Midrash of Rabbi Akiva, that even from the crowns on the letters, he would doresh, he would make interpretations, tilet tilim shel halachot, right? So this is one of the earmarks of Andalusian thinking, the Chachamim from Andalusia, from Rabbi Yosef ibn Megas, and the Chachamim that I mentioned, and I didn't mention, Rabbi Yudal Barzeloni, Shemuel Hanagid, and more and more and more. These Chachamim were always sensitive. What does the text actually say? And what is the nuance that we may derive from this text. That's the first thing. The second thing, and here's more difficult for us to understand, and it's as follows. The Andalusian Chachamim did not view Judaism in theological terms. I want to explain that. Does anybody know how to say the word theology in Hebrew? If you know how to say the word theology in Hebrew, please type it in the chat. I'm just waiting. I'll give you you can also type it in English and, whatever that comes out to. I'm just looking and I'm waiting. Okay. So nobody typed anything in the chat. At least I don't see. Oh, dat. Oh, okay, Mikey. Dat. Teologia. I like that. Okay. That's very good. Teologia. Okay. Dat. So, okay. First of all, so the word dat in Hebrew, just to be clear, the word dat actually means law. Vehadat nitena beshushan habira v'ha'ir shushan nabocha. Right? What does it mean? Vehadat nitena beshushan habira v'ha'ir shushan nabocha. It means the law was given. The law that Haman promulgated against the Jewish people. Right? That means the law. Okay, that's not religion. Theologia is a new word. With the state of Israel, with the modern state of Israel, there was new words coming out, but that's not really a Hebrew word, right? It comes from the word theology. Okay, so there is no word for theology in Hebrew. It doesn't exist. Okay. Now, from the perspective of the Andalusian Chachamim, Rambam and all of his predecessors, Judaism is not exclusively about theology. Rather, Judaism is about the national laws of the Jewish people. Those national laws, they encompass some theological matters, such as the korbanot, such as tefillot, prayer, and so on. But there's much more. For example, Judaism, these national laws encompass civil law. For example, Judaism, these national laws encompass judicial process. For example, Judaism, these national laws encompass political systems, right, and political bodies. So to say that Judaism is a theological system would be a gross error. Judaism has theological aspects, but it's not about theology. And here's a great point. Rambam, he catalogs, in the Sefer HaMisvot, he catalogs the misvot of the Torah, the laws of the Torah. You must do this, you cannot do that. Misvot aseh, misvot lo taseh. The first misvot aseh that he catalogs is belief in God. Belief in God is a matter of law. It's not a matter of theology, right? And he categorizes it as a legal matter. It has a very specific parameter, has a very specific definition. So that's the second thing that I wanted to say about Andalusian thinking. And then I'm going to go now to the final thing. Give me a moment, please.
Amen.
You all heard of the religious wars in Europe. And unfortunately, sometimes theology causes division. And theology often emphasizes differences between people, differences between sects. And what I'm about to say, of course, doesn't apply to everybody, but in some cases, we see, I was once in a synagogue in Israel, and there was a person there who wasn't from the particular sect, so they wouldn't count him for the minyan, although apparently he was observant and he had a kippah. And from the theological perspective, it's always about, how are you different than us? And these differences and the emphasis on differences are often destructive. right? So in Judaism, we have the following statement: Talmidei Hachamim marbim shalom ba'olam. The purpose of the wisdom of the Torah, as taught by the Talmidei Hachamim, by the sages of Israel, is to build bridges, not to create divisiveness. Okay, so that's the third thing I wanted to tell you about this Andalusian perspective, because I have that title, and some of you think, oh, that's a fancy title. What does it even mean? So I wanted to make sure that you understood where I'm coming from, so that you can fully appreciate where we're going to together. Okay, so we're all going to start studying Pirkei Avot from this perspective, and I think that in this manner we will see some beautiful things in the text. Okay, so I want to give you an opportunity here, if anybody has any questions, to send over a chat. Otherwise, we will actually start studying the first Mishnah. We're going to actually start the first Mishnah. That's going to be in a moment. All right, I don't see. Yodei Datfadin, yes, okay. I assumed it was a joke, of course. Yes, that's fine. And okay, so if there are no questions, I am now going to continue. All right, so unfortunately today I don't have the ability to share the text with you, but I believe that many of you have the text in front of you, Pirkei Avot. It's in many of the Sidurim, right? But I will read and I will explain to you the Mishnayot. Okay, so we're now starting the first Mishnah. And here's the way I'm going to approach it. I'm going to read the Mishnah for you. I'm going to explain it at the superficial level. And then I'm going to step back and explain the depth hidden within the Mishnah. Okay? So let's start. Moshe kibel Torah miSinai. Moses received the Torah in a specific place, namely Har Sinai. Okay. The Mount Sinai. Umsara Yoshua. And Moses transmitted the Torah to Joshua. We'll explain what does that mean, that he transmitted the Torah. That's important. Joshua was the military leader of the Jewish people when the Jewish people entered Israel. So when the Jewish people left Egypt, Moses was the leader of the Jewish people. And for 40 years, they were in the desert. And then Moses doesn't enter Israel. Moses goes up Har Nevo and he leaves. And then comes Joshua. Joshua is the political king, leader, military leader of the Jewish people. He's the one who enters Israel with the Jewish people and conquers some of the land of Israel. So that's Joshua. Ve'Yehoshua lizkenim. And then finally, Joshua transmits the Torah to the zekenim. The word zekenim means elders, but I'm going to explain a little more about what that means. Uzkenim lanevi'im. And the zekenim, the elders, they transmitted the Torah to the prophets. And again, we will explain that as well. Why? I guess the best question we can ask is, weren't there prophets before the days of the Nevi'im? We're saying that Zekanim transmitted it to the prophets, but there were prophets beforehand. Where were they? Right? Just a few things. We're going to explain all this. Okay. Munvi'im mesaruha le'anshe knesset gedola. And finally, the prophets transmitted the Torah to the men of the great assembly. Anshe Knesset Hagedola. Okay, let's stop here and now let's ponder upon the words that we just read. First of all, why is this the first lesson that we learn in Pirkei Avot? Why do we start with Moshe Kibel Torah miSinai? Why is that so important?
Because it presupposes everything that they're about to talk about.
Okay, and what do you mean when you say it presupposes? Can you explain that a little?
Meaning it has to be the first tenet of belief that you have before you could delve into Pirkei Avot. They're pulling from Torah, like you said earlier.
Okay.
Meaning the Torah doesn't have a built-in theology; it has laws. You have to kind of pull out those thoughts. So you need to have full emunah in the whole system of transmission in order to buy what the Pirkei Avot's going to start to talk about.
Okay. Okay. Well, okay. So first of all, thank you for that. I think that that's an important point that you make. I'd like to perhaps give you a slightly different perspective, or not even different, but something that would give you additional food for thought. And it's as follows. What makes the Jewish people a nation? What makes us a unique nation? That's the question. So let's say you look at America. What makes America a unique nation? So I would say America has achieved the pinnacle of combining freedom with capitalism. So they have the US Constitution, and what makes America different and great is that it is the country, it is a republic that has somehow combined freedom with capitalism, and they have the Republic of the United States. Okay. Let's think about, let's say, China unique. So China is a totalitarian regime which has certain totalitarian values. They don't value freedom like they do in America, right? They have other ideas that make them what they are. Every nation has its particular characteristics, its particular historical perspective and origins. What's at the heart of Judaism? And the answer is one word: Berit, covenant. We are the nation that entered into, let's call it a contract, because maybe some of you may not. We entered into a contract with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, with God, right? That's the starting point of all knowledge. Let's go back to the word epistemology. That's the beginning of Jewish epistemology. The beginning of Jewish epistemology is we are committed to the covenant that we entered into. We know when we entered into. We know what year it was. We know how many days it was since we left Mitzrayim. We know where this place was. It's a historical event. So that's who we are. We are the nation that freely entered into a covenant with God. He didn't have to do it. We didn't have to do it. We did it because we wanted to do it, right? And who was our messenger? Who was our agent?
Moshe.
Moshe Rabbeinu. And who was God's agent?
Moshe,
correct. Moshe Rabbeinu. So Moshe Rabbeinu was the agent of the Jewish people. We appointed him as our agent to, so to speak, receive the terms of the covenant. And Hashem accepted Moshe Rabbeinu as his agent to give the covenant to the Jewish people. And that's the starting point of everything. We are a nation that is committed to the laws of the Torah because we made a choice. We made a choice in Har Sinai that we want to have that comes from, and that we want to commit ourselves to this law. That's the starting point of everything. If you don't believe in the covenant, this book, Pirkei Avot, is not for you. Jewish thinking is not for you. It may be for you in a university, academics, whatever, the way you study, ancient Chinese pottery, okay, whatever, the way you study the Ming Dynasty, the way you study a lot of things. But you are not a Chinese. Just because you study pottery of the Ming Dynasty, that doesn't make you a Chinese, right? And just because you saw a Kung Fu movie on TV doesn't make you a Tibetan monk, right? So you want to be a Jew, you want to have Jewish epistemology, starting point, Beri. We're committed to the law. That's the beginning of everything. That's the Reshit Chochmah. And that's why we start with the idea of Har Sinai. Understood?
Yirat Adonai Reshit Da'at.
Yes, that's
Mhm.
you're right, and that's Shlomo HaMelech, Chochma Musar Evilim Bazu. That's personal wisdom that parents give to their children, and that's at the personal level. Now
It
we're
still
talking
reflects
about
the idea, though, that the emunah Hakadosh Baruch Hu and entering in the bidi is the beginning of all knowledge, like what you're saying.
right. The only thing is that remember, it's a matter of who we are as a nation. You're emphasizing the individual, which is great, by the way, and there's nothing wrong with emphasizing that. I want to emphasize the national aspect.
Mhm.
I want to say that if you want to be a member of the Jewish nation, you must be committed to what it is that makes us the Jewish nation. So you can't say, I reject the Berit, I reject Har Sinai, I reject the Torah, I reject the laws, and yeah, but I have Jewish. No, you don't. No, there's nothing. I'm not saying you're good or you're bad. I'm not coming here to pass judgment on anyone. So please don't misconstrue what I'm saying. But you're just not a member of the Jewish nation, at least in the way you think, right? Because to be a Jew doesn't mean to have the DNA of a Jew. You have to have the DNA of a Jew, but you can also be a Ger Tzedek. You can also be a person who entered the Jewish nation through whatever the process of Gerut is. So the DNA is not essential. What is essential? One thing. You committed to the Berit, you committed to the covenant, okay. That's what makes you a Jew. And even if you're a Goy and you decide to convert, but you want to commit yourself to the Torah, you're invited in. Understood?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, great. And I like very much the interaction. So please, anybody who wants to ask or comment, feel free. I think it's good to have these discussions. Okay, so Moshe kibel Torah misinai. On a future occasion, I will answer the question that many of you are asking. I assume some of you are thinking about the Gemara in Masechet. I think it's Masechet Shabbat Pechet, where it says Kafa alehem har keririt, right? That Hashem took Har Sinai and supposedly threatened the Jewish people, as it appears to be in the text of the Gemara. This would seem to undermine the idea of a freely entered into a covenant. One day, I will teach that Gemara, and you will see how the Geonim and the Andalusian Hachamim studied the Gemara so beautifully, because there is an important rabbinic dictum, and it is as follows: En mikra yoseh midei peshuto. You cannot divorce a verse from its simple common meaning. Now, if you look at the actual verses describing Har Sinai, you see that it was freely entered into. It was clear that it was consensual. What does the Gemara mean when it says kafa aleim hakigigit? So people say, oh, it means that God forced it upon them. So you will see that there was a different way to understand the Gemara, and the different way to understand the Gemara actually conforms with the peshat of the Pesukim. That's what makes it so beautiful. Okay, and I said that one of the earmarks of Andalusian Jewry is we always want to see what the text actually says and then align ourselves properly according to the text. But that really is a separate class. That can be a 1-hour class that I could give just on that subject. Okay, but now I'm not studying that. Okay, getting back to the Mishnah. So when Moshe Rabbeinu received this system of laws from the Jewish people, from Har Sinai, from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, his number one goal in life was to transmit it to the Jewish people. Okay, so here's what happened. The Jews were in the desert for 40 years. Okay, during the course of this 40 years, Moshe Rabbeinu would invite the leaders of Israel, starting with Aharon, his brother, and then continuing on with the sons of Aharon, Elazar and Tamar, and then the 70 elders, the political of the Jewish people, and any Jewish study. They were all invited into Ohel Moed. Moshe Rabbeinu started teaching them as follows. Let's say today, I want to teach you the laws of Tefillin. He would begin by teaching them the Pesukim that deal with Tefillin. So for example, Moshe Rabbeinu would say, here is the Pasuk. Here's the Torah shebiktav on this mitzvah. Ukshartam leot al yadecha vehayu letotafot ben einecha. He would teach him the pasuk. He would teach him the meaning of the pasuk, right? He would teach him how to read the pasuk correctly, like they do in Pirqe. In Pirqe Yeshiva, they emphasize the correct reading of the pasuk. That's so important. Well, that's when Moshe Rabbeinu taught the Torah to the Jewish people. So that's really important, right? So after he taught them the pasuk, he would teach them the laws related to the pasuk. So he's teaching them tefillin. He says tefillin has to come from leather of a behema tehora, and he taught them what you make the leather from, how you prepare the leather. It's deyo, shahor, it has to be a black, it has to be 4 perashiot, how the perashiot are written, how the perashiot are prepared. He taught them all the details of the laws of the tefillin over the course of the 40 years. It wasn't instantaneous. It was over the course of the 40 years in the desert. He taught them all the laws of tefillin. And so with each one of the mitzvot of the Torah. So this was the Jewish people learning the laws of Israel, the Torah, for 40 years. That's what they did. They had nothing else to do in the desert, right? Because they had their food, they had their clothing, they had their shoes, they had everything, right? What were they doing for 40 years? Studying Torah with Moshe Rabbeinu. So that's how Moshe Rabbeinu transmitted the Torah to the Jewish people. And the Jewish people, at the end of the 40 years, they did something really important. What did they do? Who knows? In Parashat Nisavim.
They reaffirmed the covenant. They reaffirmed the Pirqe.
Exactly. Why did they do that? They already entered into the Berit in Har Sinai. They already said Naaseh v'nishma. They already told God, we're willing to, accept the Torah. We accept the Torah. Tell us what the Torah is. We accept it. Why, after 40 years, do they have to again reaffirm the covenant?
Well, because now they have the full knowledge of all the laws and the details of the laws. And also because they were going into the land and the circumstances were changing. That's another...
Right. So I'm going to deal with the first thing you said.
They were also physically new people.
They were physically... Well, okay. So, okay, that's interesting. So put that just for a moment on the side. Just for a moment. I'm going to get to that. I want to first just deal with what Eddie said. So to begin with, yes, we accepted the Torah. We committed ourselves to the Torah. We entered freely into a covenant with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Berit. Good. But we didn't know the details. Now that over the course of 40 years, we learned all of the details. We learned all of the laws. Now we come and we say, yes, we absolutely accept this. Right? This is who we are as a nation. We now know the Torah. We know what we're accepting, and we love it. Right? So it's, you can imagine a person, maybe back then, although the Gemara says you're not supposed to do this, but he sends a messenger to give Kiddushin to a woman that he never saw. The Gemara says you shouldn't do that. The Gemara says in Masechet Kiddushin, it says, you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't send a messenger. You should give the Kiddushin yourself, because maybe if you don't see her, maybe you'll end up not loving her. Maybe you're not going to find her beautiful. So in this story, the man gives the Kiddushin through a messenger. Then the woman comes to Chuppah, and she's beautiful. She's radiant. He can't believe his eyes. So he says, yes, beautiful. I can't believe it. This is what I wanted. That's the Jewish people in Parashat Nisavim. First, we said yes in Har Sinai, right? And the Gemara says that Am Yisrael is Am Paziz, Kama Piziza. How impetuous is this nation that they accepted Torah before they knew the laws of the Torah. After the 40 years we studied all the laws, we say, yes, this is beautiful. And we enter into a Berit once more. I now want to address what Doris said. Is this Berit binding upon us as individuals? Or is it binding upon us as members of the Jewish nation? In other words, at the essence of what it means to be a Jew is my commitment to the laws of my nation. Let me illustrate this. Let's say a person says, I want to move to America. I want to be an American citizen. However, I don't believe in the US Constitution. I refuse to commit myself to the federal laws of the United States. I refuse to commit myself to those state laws of the state that I'm going to find my residence in, right? But I am an American. Will we accept that person as an American? I refuse to pledge allegiance to the flag. I refuse to have loyalty to the US government, and so on and so forth. Well, we would say that's an absurdity, because the essence of what it means to be an American means, well, first of all, you have allegiance to the laws of the United States of America and to its political institutions, the Supreme Court, the Congress, the president, right? That's what we are. So it is with Am Yisrael. If you want to be a Jew, we are committed to the laws of the Jewish people. So it's not just like a question of, well, do our children have to follow the laws? Well, the answer is, if they consider themselves part of the nation of Israel, which we do, and which our children do, then by definition, they are going to have allegiance to the laws and the political institutions of the Jewish people, right? So that's why I always emphasize the nation of Israel, the national aspect of the laws of Israel. Does that fully address your question, Doris?
I'll buy it, but I'm still just having difficulty, only because the generation just came out of slaves and they were born into this transitional period. I still feel like they had a right to have to accept it on their own accord. But I hear you that we're part of a nation and we have to just accept the chain. Although I do believe that in all of our lives, we do like a recommitting to the Bidi as individuals. But I hear you pushing the national goal, and I'm pulling for the individual. So I'm gonna buy.
So to your point, if a person wants to leave the nation of Israel, is anybody yank him back? Is anybody going to force him?
No.
Do that? So you're always free. Every individual is always free. We believe that there are consequences, right? So when Am Yisrael leaves the Berit, we have Perashat Kitavo, which says there's consequences for our choices. Mm-hmm. So any choice a person makes in his life has consequences. In the case of the Torah, it's not that somebody's forcing the individual. Nobody's forcing him, but rather it's a choice. And that's the amazing thing about Judaism. It's always a choice. We make a choice. We make a choice to follow the Torah, to follow the halachot. Nobody can force me. There's many people, for example, today in various countries in the world, there are many people who consider themselves Jewish, but they're not committed to the mitzvot. They're not committed to the Torah. That's their choice. I believe there's consequences to that choice, but I'm not going to go and try to, forcibly, tell them come back or out. We don't do that. We never do that, right? So it's always the individual making a decision. Do I want to be committed to the nation of Israel? That means to the laws of Israel, to the books of Israel, the texts of Israel, that's the Torah, or not, right?
Rabbi Faur.
Yes.
Hi, it's Amy. I have a question. Do you feel that we have a heightened sense of individuality nowadays as opposed to any other time in history because of Western culture, and it's just a different sense of individuality versus national?
Yep, that's a great question.
Great question.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, that's a great question, and so that would be that would require a class. Let me answer it really, like, just touch upon the answer. Yeah, there's no question that because we come from the Western world and post-Enlightenment and emphasis on the individual, with such great writers as Emerson in the United States and Thoreau and others, which always emphasize the individual. There's no question that they became a natural part. I don't like the word nature, but I'll use it here. Natural part of who we are, because that's part of the thinking now of the Western world. I don't necessarily. Here's where I would not agree fully with what your question assumes, which is, well, okay, in prior times, we weren't like that. In prior times, we didn't have this sense of individuality. So my answer to you is, yes, we did. As Jews, we always have this sense of individuality, because this idea of the individual being autonomous, that idea is at the heart of what it means that Adam was created b'Tselem Elohim. Right? So this is a Jewish idea, right? So It's so important to understand the influence of Jewish thinking upon the Western world, which we live in now. And I'd like to touch upon that more, but this is one great example. So I do agree with you that there were many Jews over the course of history who didn't necessarily feel the empowerment that the Torah gives us as individuals. But that's only because they were getting mentally assimilated by the society around them, which put down the individual and raised up the state, right? So but the Jewish idea and the Torah idea is Habib Adam Shenivra B'Selem. And I have somebody here who wants to ask me a question. Right?
Like surah, when you make paintings, that's
Yeah.
like pointillism.
Yeah.
And then when you look at it as a whole, you see the whole,
Right.
like painting.
Yes.
Together. That's Am Yisrael.
That's Am Yisrael. Exactly. Is that beautiful, beautiful example that Ella just gave. So we're like, imagine a painting and it's just, connect the dot type thing.
No,
And then
pointillism.
I'm sorry?
Pointillism.
Pointillism, which you have to explain to me later because I don't know.
Like
Uh-huh.
that, but it makes
It makes an image.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay. All right. So I see we have another 3 minutes. So let's just go for 3 minutes. And Lo was a revolution. Lo yimetu avot al banim concept was yes, it was a revolutionary concept. And I'm now going to just let's see what I can do here. Okay, so let me say the following. My goal with this class, and I know different people have different goals when they study, is not necessarily to cover texts, right? I don't want to view this as a race. I want to discuss ideas with you. I really do. And we're studying the text. The text is generating the ideas. I'm studying each word. Next week, I want to explain to you what the word kibel means. Moshe kibel, Torah means. What does it mean kibel? He received. I know what that means, but I want to explain to you a little more about what that was, what that meant, right? But the important thing is that Moses gave the Jewish people the Torah shebichtav, the 5 books of Moses, right? Called the Chumash, called the 5 books of Moses because Moses gave us those books. Bereshit, Shemot, Vayikra, Bemidbar, Devarim. He wrote the whole thing. There's a machloket in the Gemara regarding the last Pesukim, but we make halacha that the Moshe Rabbeinu wrote the whole thing, including the last Pesukim describing the death of Moshe Rabbeinu. It wasn't really his death. We say that Vayamot Moshe, but he just went straight up to Har Nevo and went straight up to Olam Haba. Nevertheless, he gave us a Torah Bichtav, but most importantly, he gave us the Torah Shebe'al Peh, so that when we read the Torah Shebichtav, we knew the meaning of the Torah Shebichtav, because we received the Torah Shebe'al Peh as well, and the Torah Shebe'al Peh was the way we processed and the way we read the Torah Shebichtav. That's such an important point. It wasn't manufactured. It wasn't made up later. No, we knew what the Pesukim meant because Moshe Rabbeinu taught us what the Pesukim meant. Now, having said that, and I have about 30 seconds, do I mean to say that there wasn't any further developments? Of course not. There was further developments. There were many, many developments on the Torah, but we're step by step. So the first step that we learned today is we received the Pesukim from Moshe, we received the interpretation of the Pesukim from Moshe, we received the Misvot, and we received all the details of the Misvot from Moshe. There were other things we didn't receive from Moshe, but that's where we're at right now. I see the time has come, but if anybody has any questions or any further comments, I am more than happy to hear the question and to address it. Okay. Well, it's really been a pleasure. I really enjoy this. And next week, 8:45. Thank you, Mikey. Thank you. Next week, 8:45, we're going to be continuing this class. This will be on YouTube. I don't know, Amy, whether you're going to be putting it on your thing. If it's okay, I'd like to put it on my channel as well. So whatever you do is fine.
Yeah, I'll send you the recording.
Okay, wonderful. Wonderful. So have a good night. To Skule Shanim Rabot. Enjoy the Pesach. Everybody should be happy. It's a tremendous holiday. And after Pesach, we'll all get together again.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Amen. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
My pleasure. Go to.